Whether the federal government chooses to adjust federal deficit spending and/or adjust federal income taxes is a political decision. It's only important that adjustments to spending and adjustments to taxation be counter-cyclical or reverse economic conditions for the better, like the tax cuts and spending increases did in the year 2001. They should not be pro-cyclical or continue to be a drag on already anemic economic growth, like the tax hikes and spending sequestration did in 2013. The reason being is that federal deficit spending and federal income taxes must be adjusted in opposite directions to be effective. If you increase both federal deficit spending and federal income taxes, the net effect is zero because you are taking accommodative and non-accommodative actions to the non-federal government at the very same time. The same thing happens if you decrease both. If you decrease federal deficit spending, which is non-accommodative, and at the very same time decrease federal income taxes, which is accommodative, the result is, again, zero net effect. Fiscal policy is effective only when your actions are in sync with what you want to accomplish. For example, you increase deficit spending and lower federal income taxes like in the year 2001 if you want to speed up the economy, which is what most politicians were trying to do then. You only do the opposite, decrease federal deficit spending and increase federal income taxes like in 2013 if you want to slow down the economy, which isn't what most politicians were trying to do. Therefore, the key is that everyone should understand the difference between adjustments in federal deficit spending and federal income taxes of fiscal policy in a modern monetary context. In conjunction with fiscal policy, there is also monetary policy. Monetary policy is administered by the federal government, the issuer of dollars, through its agent, the Federal Reserve Bank. The Fed controls monetary policy independently of the federal government. However, it's important to note that the Fed is part of the federal government. More precisely, the Fed is independent within the federal government, not independent of the federal government. Monetary policy by the Fed is mainly attempted by making adjustments to the price or interest rates of dollars. Monetary policy and fiscal policy together make up our economic ecology, a spectacular masterpiece that is our modern monetary system. Just like the federal government, the Fed can easily determine the proper balance of interest rates by the rate of unemployment and the stability of prices. For example, if unemployment and prices are stable, then the economy is balanced, the economic environment is perfect, and the Fed has achieved its dual mandate. However, if unemployment is very low, wages and consumer prices start rising too quickly, that means the Fed needs to increase interest rates for less liquidity. By draining liquidity, it tightens economic conditions and prevents inflation. On the other hand, if unemployment is very high, wages and consumer prices are not rising at all, that means the Fed needs to decrease interest rates for more liquidity. By adding liquidity, it eases economic conditions and prevents deflation. If and when the Fed chooses to adjust interest rates is not a political decision, and why the Fed is independent, so it can make their decisions on monetary policy without interference or influence from any outside forces. It's only important that Fed's actions balance the economy, not help special interests or win elections. It's also important to note that Fed actions sometimes are made not only because of prevailing economic conditions, but also to counter prevailing political conditions. The extraordinary quantitative easings from 2008 to 2013 were mostly needed because of the extraordinary dysfunction of the political process, which resulted in bickering, downgrades, and shutdowns. That is not an environment that creates confidence or is any way conducive for stronger economic growth. We all know that political parties are competing with each other, and we get they don't like each other. The question is, can they work with each other? Look at Japan. Their lost decade wasn't caused by the economy, not by the Japanese citizens. The Japanese are well educated, hard-working, diligent savers. The Japanese politicians, on the other hand, are a different story. The average term of Japan's prime ministers is just 2 years. From 2006 to 2011, 4 out of 5 prime ministers did not stay in power for more than 12 months. Frequent political changes and the uncertainty it creates were the major reasons for Japan's prolonged economic stagnation. The Japanese who invented quantitative easing know all too well that extraordinary monetary policy can help buffer political inaction, but cannot cure it. While chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank, Ben Bernanke frequently expressed concern about a drag from Washington and often included in policy statements that fiscal policy was restraining economic growth. This is why the central bank is independent, so that its monetary policy can also counter or negate political dysfunction and pro-cyclical fiscal policies that may amplify or make economic conditions worse. Next up, more about the Federal Reserve Bank.